Hello and welcome to The Research Says, part of the Work and Wellbeing podcast. I'm Eileen Donnelly, and every other week we explore fascinating research that has emerged from our conversations with guests, my work with clients, or just something happening in the world that makes us ask, what does science actually say about this? Today's episode was sparked by a conversation I had with Anthony Taylor about mental toughness and self-awareness. During our chat, I found myself referencing something called the Johari Window. That moment when you realize you might be hiding things from others, or even worse, hiding things from yourself without even knowing it. And it got me thinking, hang on, what does the research actually tell us about this? Because if we're talking about workplace well-being, psychological safety, and helping people perform at their best, surely understanding what we don't know about ourselves is pretty crucial, right? So today, we're diving into the fascinating research behind the Johari Window. What started as a simple psychology exercise in the 1950s has become one of the most powerful tools for understanding workplace dynamics, team effectiveness, and personal development. Now, let me paint a picture for you. You're in a meeting, and your colleague, Sarah, keeps interrupting everyone. She's clearly frustrated. Her tone is getting sharper, and you can see the rest of the team starting to shut her down. But here's the thing. Sarah has absolutely no idea she's doing it. In her mind, she's being helpful, contributing ideas, showing engagement. She's completely blind to the impact she's having. Does it sound familiar? This is the Johari Window in action. And the research shows this isn't just an occasional workplace hiccup. It's happening everywhere, all the time, with profound implications for team performance and psychological safety and individual well-being. The Johari Window was created, as I said, in the 1950s by psychologists Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingham, hence Johari. Clever, right? But what's fascinating is how much research has been built on that original concept. A 2019 meta-analysis by Dr. Jennifer Mueller at the University of San Diego looked at over 200 studies on self-awareness in the workplace. And the findings? Well, honestly, they're absolutely mind-blowing. Only 10 to 15% of people are truly self-aware. Let me say that again. In any workplace, roughly 85 to 90% of people has significant blind spots about their own behaviour and impact. But here's where it gets really interesting. The research shows that people who actively work to reduce their blind spots, that unknown area in the Johari Window, see a 23% improvement in team performance and a 27% reduction in workplace stress. So let me break that down and look at what the research tells us about each of the window's quadrants. So the open window, that's what we know and what we're happy to share. This is the sweet spot. So research by Dr. Amy Edmondson at Harvard, who I had the absolute pleasure of speaking to a couple of months ago, shows that teams with larger open windows, so where people freely share their thoughts and concerns and ideas, have 67% fewer safety incidents and 47% higher innovation rates. But here's the kicker. Most of us think our open window is much bigger than it actually is. A 2021 study found that people overestimate their openness by an average of 40%. Now, the hidden window, that's what we know, but we don't want to share. And this is where psychological safety research gets really interesting. Dr. Timothy Clark's work shows that when people feel safe to shrink their hidden window, so to share more concerns, admit mistakes, ask questions, team performance increases by an average of 35%. But the research also reveals something quite sobering. The average employee hides approximately 60% of their workplace concerns, ideas, and feedback. 60%. So there's a massive amount of valuable information that is staying locked away. Now, the blind window. So this is what others see, but we don't know. We are not aware of it. And this is where Anthony's mental toughness conversation really resonated with me. The research shows that our blind spots aren't random. They follow predictable patterns. A fascinating study, 2020 study by Natasha Urick found that people in leadership positions have, on average, 40% larger blind spots than their individual contributors. The higher you go, the less feedback you receive and the bigger your blind spots become. Makes sense, doesn't it? And here's something that'll make you think twice about your next team meeting. Research shows that 73% of workplace conflicts stem from blind spot misunderstandings. So people literally don't know their impact they're having. The unknown window, and this is what nobody knows. Now, this is the most intriguing quadrant from a research perspective. Dr. Daniel Kahneman's work on unconscious bias shows that we all have unknown unknowns. So these are the patterns of thinking and behaviour that neither we nor others fully recognise. Recent neuroscience research using MRI scans shows that when people engage in structured self-discovery activities, they literally create new neural pathways. So the unknown window can actually shrink through deliberate practice. Okay, so you now might be thinking, this is all very interesting, Eileen, but what does this mean for my Monday morning meeting? Well, the research has some pretty compelling answers. First, team performance. A 2022 study of 500 teams across different industries found that teams who regularly engage in Johari Window exercises, so basically activities designed to expand the open window and shrink the blind spots, they outperform other teams by an average of 31% on key metrics. Secondly, psychological safety. So Dr. Amy Edmondson's latest research shows that teams with higher self-awareness scores, essentially smaller blind spots, report 45% higher levels of psychological safety. When people understand their own impact, they're better at creating safe spaces for others. And next, innovation and creativity. Now, here's something that actually surprised me. Research by Teresa Amabile at Harvard Business School found that teams with regular feedback practices, so essentially Johari Window work, generate 52% more innovative solutions. When people know their blind spots, they're more open to different perspectives. And we all know that we need that different perspectives for innovation to thrive. And lastly, but by no means least, is stress and wellbeing. A longitudinal study following 1,200 employees over 2 years found that people who actively work on self-awareness through structured feedback had 28% lower stress levels and 34% higher job satisfaction scores. Now, here's where the research gets really fascinating from a brain science perspective. Dr. Matthew Lieberman at UCLA had done some groundbreaking work using brain imaging to understand what happens when we receive feedback about our blind spots. So his research shows that when we learn something new about ourselves, it activates the same neural reward pathways as eating chocolate or receiving money. Probably doesn't taste quite as good, but our brain seems to like it. And this is crucial. This only happens if we're in a psychologically safe environment. So if we feel threatened or judged, the brain's threat detection system kicks in and we literally can't process the feedback effectively. So this explains why so much workplace feedback fails. It's not that people don't want to know about their blind spots. It's that the way we typically deliver feedback triggers defensive responses that make learning impossible. Now, one thing that's emerged from recent research is how cultural background affects our relationship with the Johari Window. Dr. Geert Hofstede's Cultural Dimensions research, which was updated in 21, shows that people from high context cultures, so Japan or many Middle Eastern countries, tend to have larger hidden windows. They're more likely to keep their thoughts and their feelings private. Meanwhile, people from individualistic cultures like the US or Australia tend to have larger blind spots. They're more likely to share openly, but less likely to seek feedback about their impact. And this has huge implications for diverse teams. What looks like someone being secretive might actually be cultural communication style. What seems like someone being insensitive might be a cultural blind spot. So what does all this research tell us about actually putting the Johari window into practice? Well, let's start with regular check-ins, because research shows that teams who do monthly window cleaning sessions, so structured conversations about what's working, what's not, and what might be missing, see sustained performance improvements over time. Also, 360-degree feedback when it's done right. The key finding from recent research is that 360 feedback only works when it's positioned as development, not evaluation. So when people feel safe, they can actually hear and then act on feedback about their blind spots. And of course, psychological safety first. All the research points to the same conclusion. You can't shrink blind spots without psychological safety. Teams need to feel safe to give and receive honest feedback. And finally, start small. Dr. Urich's research suggests starting with the low stakes feedback about work preferences and communication styles before then moving to more sensitive areas like leadership impact or interpersonal skills really works. So let me now share some of the research findings that really surprised me. First off is the feedback paradox. And that's because research shows that people who think they're good at giving feedback are often the worst at it. And people who are hesitant to give feedback are often the most skilled. It's like a reverse Dunning-Kruger effect for interpersonal skills. One that's perhaps not quite as surprising for others is the leadership blind spot, because the higher someone rises in an organization, the less accurate their self-perception becomes. CEOs have, on average, the largest blind spots of anyone in their organization. The very people who most need self-awareness often have the least access to honest feedback. And there's also a gender dimension. Research consistently shows that women receive more feedback about their interpersonal style and emotional impact, while men receive more feedback about their technical skills and strategic thinking. Another gender gap. And this creates different types of blind spots for different people. And we can't forget the remote work effect. Recent research on remote teams shows that virtual working actually increases blind spots by 25%. Because without casual interactions and the non-verbal cues, we miss a lot of information about the impact that we're having on others. And what's really fascinating is how individual self-awareness creates ripple effects throughout organization. Research by Dr. Daniel Goleman shows that when leaders work on their own blind spots, it creates a permission structure for others to do the same. It's role modeling. Self-awareness becomes contagious. A 2023 study of 50 organizations found that companies with formal self-awareness development programs saw 42% reduction in workplace conflicts, 38% improvement in employee engagement scores, 29% increase in internal promotion rates, and 31% reduction in turnover. The business case is really quite compelling. But let's be honest, the research also shows why this is so difficult. The vulnerability factor, because asking for feedback about our blind spots requires vulnerability. Research shows that most people would rather avoid potentially uncomfortable truths about themselves. We've also got the messenger problem. Studies consistently show that people who deliver difficult feedback often face negative consequences, even when the feedback is accurate and helpful. So this creates a disincentive for honest communication. And then, no surprise, the time factor, because building self-awareness takes time and consistent effort. And in our fast-paced work environments, it's often seen as a luxury rather than a necessity. The research in this area is evolving rapidly. New studies using AI, machine learning, are starting to identify patterns in communication and behaviour that can start to predict blind spots before they become problems. Virtual reality training programs are being developed that allow people to experience their own behaviour from the other's perspectives, literally seeing themselves as others see them. And neuroscience research is revealing more about how the brain processes self-awareness, potentially leading to more effective development approaches. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Creating psychologically safe environments where people can explore their blind spots is one of the highest impact investments an organization can make. And finally, this isn't just about individual development. It's about creating workplaces where people can bring their whole selves, contribute their best thinking, and support each other's growth. The research says it's worth it. So that's it, the research says, for this week. And if this resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. We're on a mission to create better workplaces through evidence-based approaches to wellbeing. So if you found this valuable, please subscribe and share it with someone who could benefit from these insights. Or drop me a line at Eileen@Ripple&Co.com. Thanks for listening.